But then came the Elimination Chamber. The second time. We've already seen this, so at least we kind of know the rules now and the way things are going to play out. They've given us a preview earlier. This was Lashley versus Rollins versus AJ Styles versus Riddle versus Theory versus Brock Lesnar. And what? I'm sorry?
I'm saying it was a very well-timed turn of your page there.
Yes. I'd like to turn the page on this whole chapter, but I'd like to think going into this, my God, this is such a dangerous match. But a 95-pound girl just came in second without even bleeding or messing her makeup up. So I'm thinking it may be okay here. Except the one guy that got injured actually went into the thing hurt. Also, does it take away some of the danger and aura of violence of these matches now that they've got a budget, that everything's so clean and so brand new and so spotless? It doesn't. The War Games, when they set that cage up in the fucking Omni, right? That awesome shit could go down here. Some chain link fence and a goddamn wrestling ring with a bloodstained mat. Good times. Now you could eat off this shit. People's homes aren't as clean as this. When they have garbage matches, they buy new toolboxes to have it to roll in the ring and hit each other with. Anyway, so Theory and Seth Rollins started out, and again, nice wrestling action in the middle of all this gimmick. They're both smooth, they're timing, they're on point, they're precise. You know, their shit looks just fine, right? And then Seth picks Theory up on the ring is surrounded by a platform, and then the chain of the Elimination Chamber and the plexiglass pods at the corners. Seth Rollins picks Theory up and buckle bombs him into the plexiglass on Lashley's pod, which breaks, and he goes into Lashley, and Lashley just kind of sinks to the ground and is unconscious. And we find out later on, because then I was like, well, that's kind of pissy. And the doctors are starting to check on him while the match is going on. Apparently, Brian, did you hear that he had a pre-existing shoulder injury from the Royal Rumble and couldn't do anything, and this was the way of getting him out of the match, as well as, thankfully, he didn't get beat, but he still lost the title. But remember when I said when Brock was giving him all those German suplexes, I said as it went on, it looked like Bobby was tired of going over backwards on his head and started going sideways, landing on his shoulder?
Yeah.
Apparently, that wasn't a good thing to do either. So Lashley is taken out of this thing, and people are like, what the fuck? And again, I know he's hurt and they didn't want to risk anything, but multiple times on this show, somebody had already taken some maneuver, what a maneuver, that was more devastating looking than poor Bobby just slinks down and, there we go. But it is what it is.
So they put the belt on him when he was already hurt at the Rumble?
No, well, no, wait. Because he was hurt in that match. So that's where he won the belt.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know that you're always hurting. You wouldn't know you were hurt until you came out.
But if the idea, you have to think the idea was to get title versus title at WrestleMania, right? Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And if that's the case, you would think Brock Lesnar was going to win the Elimination Chamber one way or the other.
Yes.
Was it worth it to put the belt on Bobby Lashley for a month?
Yes, if he hadn't got hurt. I'm not arguing with the way, I'm sure whatever they originally intended for this would have had Lashley coming out better than he looked when he just, took a dive in the pod. But I wouldn't have, they didn't know he was hurt in the match where he won the title back at Rumble. And then they went on with the plans that they were going to fucking do until they found out he couldn't wrestle now. Don't you see?
I see. I still question, even if he didn't get hurt, if you put the belt on him for a month, just to have Lesnar win the belt back at Elimination Chamber?
Well, hey, then in that case, call up Bruce. Don't argue with me. You try arguing with Bruce. I've tried it too many times over the past. But next in was the bro himself, Matt Riddle, and he did stuff. I know for whatever reason, because people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like. I know he's a legitimate athlete, but with the foolishness compounded by WWE booking, does anybody take him seriously as a top guy that's going to win the championship, or just he's the gimmick? It's going to be the odd couple partner with Orton or do whatever.
I couldn't wait to see Brock throw him, though.
Well, it didn't last long, did it? AJ came in next. AJ Styles did all kinds of shit. But at this point, it was like they were killing time. And then finally, Riddle went on a flurry where he laid everybody out. And so the only person left to come in the match is Brock, right? But when the timer counts down and beep, it's Lashley's pod that opens, because it was his turn if he'd have still been there, right? Theoretically. So everybody kind of goes, ooh, and I guess they were going to do something. And this is out, and I can believe it. And I'll tell you the reason in a second why I believe it. Brock just said, fuck it, and felt the people and broke out of his pod in the non-gimmicked plexiglass and came in and started kicking the shit out of everybody. Apparently, and that's been reported, he went into business for himself. And I've got to think that actually is probably the best thing that could have been done at that spot, because it was an awkward, like, what the fuck? But the reason I know why it wasn't planned is because they didn't shoot it. And if they would have been there and ready and on top of it, if that was a planned spot, and if the TV crew from the director on down had known it was going to happen, they'd have got a great. But you just saw barely in the back of the screen, Brock kicked that thing out, and you heard the announcers talk about it, and he came. But that's an example of a guy like Brock. All the main event guys used to feel this way in the territory days. If something came up and it's there, I'm going to do it. If the booker yells at me, I'm going to apologize later on. But that's how, that memorable moments are created, because you don't plan a lot of them. But nobody but Brock has the leeway or the balls or the I don't give a shit that all the main event guys used to have in the whole business to do his own shit. Of course, back then, most of the time, 85% of the time, the business that the main event guys went into on their own was better than what was planned. Now it would probably be reverse of that. So Brock is in the ring, and boom, big comeback. F5 on Rollins, 1, 2, 3. F5 on Riddle, 1, 2, 3. F5 on AJ, 1, 2, 3. And then Austin Theory is like, fuck. And he did a great job selling this with the facials and like, I don't know what to do. And he's trying to run. He's trying to climb. Actually, Theory got the big ball shot first. And Brock sold it big so that Theory could fucking get a 2 count on him. I think with a DDT or whatever. Now Brock was mad. So Theory climbs. And did you see Austin Theory's 23, 24 years old, and he's in great physical condition. He climbs that cage, and then Brock comes out, and it climbed 25 feet in like 5 seconds. Did you see that big fucking beastly goof go up that thing? Like a monkey.
He really is like a caged animal. If you let him loose, he'll just fly at you. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why he's over. But he was up climbing not a cage, but a cage made out of chain. He was at the top of that thing in 5 seconds. And they get on top of the pod, and he F5's Theory off. Thank God he got his feet underneath him. Onto the stage by the side of the ring. And then rolled him in, and boom, and 1, 2, 3, and there you go. And again, that's how you get over or stay over. The problem is, the talent has to do their part by being the uncaged beast or whatever. And they could do this with some other guys, but it wouldn't be Brock. And Roman Reigns, they've done it. They've given him a massive push, and it's worked out for him. A lot of these other guys have neither got the push nor, to be honest, have the aura where the push would take to the level that it has with these guys, because you can, when Brock is doing some shit like that and just it's chaos, you can hearken back to the days of Austin or The Rock or Foley or whoever creating that kind of impression on you. And nobody else does that lately, which is why they're in the pickle that they're in about bringing back the Over the Hill Gang for every big pay-per-view and super show and premium live event in Saudi Arabia. What'd you think of that chamber match?
I thought it was all right. I enjoyed the spectacle of it just because I enjoy seeing Brock getting more into Austin Theory every time we see him work in the ring as opposed to the backstage segments. I was intrigued by the whole Lashley thing. Interesting way of selling. I'll say that. But,
I mean, you couldn't take a bump in there. What was he supposed to do? I understand there's okay, this will be a great visual, and Bobby doesn't have to take a bump and hurt himself, but how was he supposed to sell that? I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of bumps, I was kind of uncomfortable with that big Austin Theory bump. Jeez, I mean, he could have gotten hurt pretty badly, but he's been great in everything we've seen him in, and the right guy won the match. I questioned the booking, having him lose the belt a month ago to win it back now just to get to WrestleMania's title versus title. Does the match or anything you saw in the match change or cement your opinions about what they see in Austin Theory there, if you had to guess?
No, because, I mean, nobody had the chance to really do, do anything completely memorable besides maybe Brock fucking kicking out of the goddamn pod in this thing. But at the same time, everything Theory does, he does well. And at least they let him, instead of just getting beaten flat like almost everybody else did when Brock came in and went on the rampage, they let it be a memorable moment and him, last and do some things at the end. But no, everything except for the pre-tapes or the backstage stuff or whatever with Vince McMahon. And for obvious reasons, he's not going to do anything except say, yes, sir, on that, Austin Theory. Everything I see Theory do is impeccable for what it needs to be.